Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all my Khorne Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for post-Battles of Legend Monstrous Revenge. We got the new Caddy Khorne monster in the latest Yu-Gi-Oh! Booster set, and I've always wanted to make a deck that focuses on cards like Sweet Khorne, Papa Khorne, all the members of this deck from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal series. That's why we have our main go-to Xyz monster in the deck as well, number 50, Black Ship of Khorne, because it is possible to make this card with our main Khorne monsters being the level 4 monsters that you can use to overlay into this card, while also utilizing the field spell play that the good majority of the monsters are meant to do, like Papa Khorne getting its attack boost, and having the search power that you can do with Caddy Khorne, and then having the option for your maze tokens that you can summon off of Sweet Khorne to give you plays for going into some link monsters in the deck also. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For the Khorne monsters, we're running 3 copies of Caddy Khorne. If this card is special summon while you control no cards in your field zone, you can add 1 field spell from your deck to your hand. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 field spell in your graveyard, add 1 card with its name from your deck to your hand, and you can only use each effect of Caddy Khorne once per turn. So you have search power with Caddy Khorne no matter what you do with this card. It's got the graveyard search power, but it doesn't actually add from the graveyard, so remember that. Or just when you special summon it, you can add a field spell from your deck to your hand, which we have a very easy way to special summon this card in the deck, but definitely 3 copies of this card just so we have all those search options available to us, because getting a field spell is very important. And with that power from the field spell, we're also running 3 copies of Papa Khorne. While a field spell card is face up on the field, this card gains 1000 attack. So even if you don't have a field spell, if your opponent has a field spell, then it'll still raise the attack of your Papa Khorne, depending on the field spell as well. You can hit this card for some pretty big numbers, depending on which one is on the field, and then being able to hit over a good majority of monsters that your opponent may have thanks to this card, potentially reaching 2700 attack alone from the field spell and then its own card effect. We're also running 3 copies of Sweet Khorne once per turn. During your main phase 2, you can pay 500 life points, special summon 1 maze token onto the field. So Sweet Khorne just gives you access to a Link 2 monster just by giving you that other token on the field, depending on the Link 2 you may want to go to. It is an Earth attribute, so you can use Sweet Khorne as a way to get out cards like Mrs. Radiant to give you an additional boost to some of your other monsters like Papa Khorne on the field for you to summon, and then gain that additional attack boost on top of its own card effect and the field spell boost also. And we also run 3 copies of Lone Fire Blossom. I would say one of the best ways just to special summon out Caddy Khorne from the deck onto the field. So just having your Lone Fire be the tribute to summon out your Caddy Khorne can then just give you the additional search for your field spell using this card once it's special summoned. And you still have the resource on the field because you don't have to do anything with Caddy Khorne. So once you have this card, it's just another level 4 resource for you to use in the deck also. So Lone Fire Blossom is a definite 3 of just having that additional special summon power along with this card. And also Rose Lover, which we are running 2 copies of. You can banish it from your graveyard to special summon 1 plant monster from your hand. If you do, it's unaffected by your opponent's trap effects this turn. So let's say you have the Caddy Khorne in your hand that you want to special summon out. You can have the Rose Lover in the graveyard be banished and then special summon that plant monster from your hand, not even taking up your normal summon, meaning you can save the normal summon for cards like Papa Khorne to set up on the field also. That is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the spells. I said main deck, but the main deck monsters. For the spells that we still have to go over in the main deck, running 2 copies of the Seal of Orichalcos. I know you can only activate this card once per duel, but there's an important play that just helps with the overall search power if we don't have cards like Caddy Khorne to summon out, or just for the summon of our other monster. Seal of Orichalcos, all monsters we control gain 500 attack. Once per turn, this card cannot be destroyed by card effects, and while you control 2 or more face-up attack position monsters, your opponent cannot target your monster with the lowest attack for an attack while this card is activated. Destroy all special summon monsters you control, and you cannot special summon from the extra deck while this card's on the field either. But this is one of the cards that can get your Papa Khorne up to 2700 attack and make it so any of your weaker monsters that you may have on the field be protected, since your opponent will have to attack into your higher attack point monster before attacking into those monsters. Now, the one spot here can be Gaia Power, which just raises the attack of your Earth attribute monsters. I sadly could not find any. I don't know where I put any of my Gaia Powers. There's an old, spell ruler. field spell, but I have Vernisylph in full bloom. It's a more readily available field spell, so if you do have this card, you can run it in place of Gaia Power until you get copies of Gaia Power. And it doesn't mean that this card is completely worthless in the deck, because all monsters you control gain 1000 attack while you control 5 or more Earth monsters. While, you know, not impossible, it can be done because you have Papa Corn and then your Sweet Corn, which if you don't go for the token play, you can just set up more and more of the tokens on the field until you have 5, or just, you know, the 5 different Earth attribute monsters, which can be also cards in your extra deck to raise the attack of your cards on the field. This will put your Papa Corn, when you have those monsters, up to 3200 attack also. And then the last field spell spot is Necro Valley. I really do like this just for the restriction it can do for your opponent. It will stop your own banished plays from the graveyard for cards like Rose Lover, but most of the time you're using those plays to, you know, summon out your Caddy Corn to get you the field spell to begin with. So once you add this card to your hand, you really don't have a need for any more banishing from your own graveyard. If anything, it just limits your opponent for what they can do while still having your field spell on the field for you to use. And for the other spells, 1 copy of Terraforming, pretty self-explanatory with this card because we have so many field spells in the deck. You just want another easy way to be able to search them out. And also 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Now with this card, you have the option with Foolish Burial Goods to send your card, whether it be like, let's say, the Seal of Orichalcos to the graveyard, and then utilize your Caddy Corn. Like, let's say you don't have a way to special summon the Caddy Corn, so you can set this card on the field, activate your Foolish Burial Goods, sending the Seal of Orichalcos. Then when your opponent destroys Caddy Corn, you can target the Seal of Orichalcos in your graveyard and add the additional copy from your deck to your hand, just as sort of like a backup field spell search option for you to use in the deck. And then also 1 copy of Foolish Burial, mostly used to send Rose Lover to the graveyard to use for its banished special summon play. And also the 2 copies of Pot of Duality for more search power. If we're restricted for our extra deck special summoning, you can just use Pot of Duality to get some of the more important monsters in our hand for us to use. And then also the 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster for the additional back row destruction of your opponent's own cards with this card. And also the 1 copy of Call by the Grave for more graveyard shutdown. It can't be used, obviously, when Necro Valley's on the field, but still, it's here mostly for the special summon, so you can get your special summon off against your opponent using this card to stop any hand trap that they may try to use to stop you from special summoning out your other monsters on the field. And then moving on now to the traps. I run 3 copies of Rivalry of Warlords. Now, each player can only control 1 type of monster. The majority we run are plants, so you really don't have a restriction, aside from some of the cards you may want to run in your extra deck. But our main go-to monster, you know, Black Ship of Corn, is a plant monster as well, so we can still summon that card out. And this card can really stop your opponent depending on what extra deck summons they may want to try and use against you. So this is just another good card to control the field more in your favor when going up against your opponent also. And then I also run the 3 copies of Solemn Strike, more back row protection once you have your Necro Valley set up on the field, and then also the additional monsters. If your opponent tries to go for a bigger boss monster, you can just activate Solemn Strike, preventing that summon while keeping your bigger monsters on the field like Popcorn, then just to swing into your opponent for the bigger damage. Also, the 2 copies of Metaverse for more field spell search power, and the 2 copies of Solemn Judgment to protect our field spells on the field from being destroyed by any of their own cards also. And then moving on now to the extra deck, I only have 1 copy of Black Ship of Corn. You could run additional copies of this card, being that it is one of the central focus cards for the deck. But it's more of just a send option and, you know, burn damage against your opponent with this card. And if you do inflict 1000 damage to your opponent by sending the monster by detaching Xyz material from this card with attack less than or equal to this card, so it has to be less than 2100 attack. So remember that with this card, it can't really get over a lot, but still, you got to run the Black Ship of Corn when playing the Corn deck, obviously, with the rest of our Xyz monsters being 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Baguska, 1 Exciton Knight, and the 1 Zeus. The Rivalry of Warlords is the one thing that'll take away from being able to special summon these cards out, but still, you have them as added backup options if you don't have that card on the field. And also for the Link monsters, we have the 2 copies of Mrs. Radiant. For the attack boost, especially 2 cards like Popcorn on the field, being able to gain an additional boost on top of its own boost when the field spell's on the field. Plus, you can use cards like your Sweet Corn to give you that additional token during main phase 2, to then use the Sweet Corn you summoned out and the Mrs. Radiant for that summon, just using the Maize Corn token as well. And for the other Link monsters, 1 copy of Asa the Earth Charmer, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Underclock Taker, 1 IP Masquerena, and the 1 Barricade Board Blocker. I would say very important in this deck, just for the discard at the end of this turn to add a continuous or field spell from your graveyard back into your hand. So depending on the field spell you may want, if they do get over your Seal of Orichalcos and you just need another field spell for you to add back into your hand, this card definitely is a very good Link monster to consider. And for the rest of the Link monsters, 1 copy of Nightmare Unicorn and the 1 Apollosa for more of the bigger boss Link monsters, and Nightmare Unicorn just being the better target as well for you to use with IP Masquerena if need be. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, we mentioned before the Foolish Burial Goods setup. So if you send your Seal of Orichalcos and then you have your Caticorn and not a way to special summon it, sending it on the field, and then when your opponent destroys it, gives you the option to target the Seal of Orichalcos in your graveyard and then be able to add from your deck to your hand that copy of the card, activating it, and then giving you, a way to then summon out a bigger boss monster than the Caticorn you may have had on the field. If you go for another summon play with the Lone Fire, depending on what you may want for the summon, you can summon out the Lone Fire and then go for the Sweet Corn summon. This will let you have your Maze token play if you want to go for more of the Link 2 options on the field, or you could go for the Lone Fire, tributing it, and then using the special summon to get out your Caticorn onto the field. Caticorn will then activate, giving you your field spell search, and then just like that, you have an easy field spell activation that can shut down a lot of decks, especially when you activate Necro Valley, stopping any more graveyard plays. And then, depending on if they can get over the Caticorn or not, you may have some more back row protection for this card that they have to work around as well. And by that time, you could just go for the additional summon of another monster, and then from there, going for the overlay into some of your other monsters in the extra deck before your opponent has time to respond around the Necro Valley. If you have the Foolish Burial in your hand, you can use your Foolish Burial to send the Rose Lover to the graveyard. So then you have the send of your other monster being Rose Lover to the graveyard, and then from there you have the banish of this card to special summon a plant monster in your hand. This comes in handy when you have the Caticorn in your hand, but you'll still get the special summon and then the search of the field spell of choice thanks to this card, without ever even taking up your normal summon, which can go to the Popcorn, having the same attack play to hit into your opponent for the bigger numbers, or overlaying into the Black Ship of Corn for another additional summon there. That's why I definitely recommend having the Gaia Power if you have them. If not, Vernisylph in Full Bloom is just the added backup field spell for you to run in the deck. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, with the new Caticorn, I finally wanted to make a Corn deck profile with all the other different Corn monsters that we have in the game, and I hope you all enjoyed it as well. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.